Hardcore Pawn was once wild television, chaotic customers, fiery family arguments, shocking thefts, emotionally raw moments. Fans loved it for the drama and intensity. But after the cameras stopped rolling, what became of Liz Gold, Seth, Ashley, and the rest of the shop crew? Some stories are inspiring, others are disappointing, and many are simply human, living between fame and anonymity. We're going beyond the highlights reel. This is what really happened. Les Gold business, reality TV, and economic truths. Les Gold, born Leslie Gold in 1950, is the patriarch of Hardcore Pawn. He ran American Jewelry and Loan on Detroit's notorious 8 Mile Road, a business he inherited in spirit. His grandfather was in pawnbroking and transformed into a reality TV brand. After Hardcore Pawn ended in 2015, many fans thought Les would fade from public view. Instead, he seems to have leaned deeper into the business, using his experience from the show as both brand and platform. One major recent development: Les has started speaking out more about economic issues affecting his customers. He has observed that many who come into the shop now are not pawning items just occasionally, but to survive week to week. He has said the pawn line, customers bringing items to get cash, is significantly longer than the redemption lines, people recovering items they pawned. He sees this as a signal of worsening financial stress: food, gas, rent. That is a major shift from earlier times when pawning might have been more occasional or opportunistic. Les describes pawn shops as street-level economists.
Hardcore Pawn, Les Gold. Les, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you think that what's happening in the real economy is actually manifesting in the pawn shop industry?
We can tell you 6 months in advance how the economy is going. We have 2 lines.
Wow.
One line is for the people bringing in merchandise. One line is for people taking out their merchandise. When that line of people are in the store that are bringing us stuff and it's long to the door, we know the economy is getting bad.
Places that see economic pain before it shows up in consumer indices or stock reports. Beyond that, Les continues to maintain the business. He still appears in interviews, speaks on local media, and uses his voice to point out places where ordinary Americans are stretched thin. He is author of For What It's Worth, Business Wisdom from a Pawnbroker, which gives insight into how he views risk, negotiation, and people. He remains active, alert to both the business and moral dimensions: who is pawning because they want to, who is doing it because they're desperate. Les' health seems stable based on recent sources. He is older now, but there is no credible reporting of serious health crises. He has scaled back public appearances compared to the Hardcore Pawn era, but largely by choice rather than being forced by illness. His identity remains tied to the pawn shop and the community of Detroit, and he uses the shop as a lens into larger social issues. So Les is not over or forgotten. He's pivoted. He's using the platform he has to draw attention to issues many see but don't often acknowledge: poverty, desperation, cost of living. And he is still running the business, not always in the glare of the cameras, but carrying forward the legacy of American Jewelry and Loan. Seth Gold, co-owner, public persona, and tensions. Seth Gold is widely recognized as the son of Les Gold and as the co-owner of American Jewelry and Loan, the Detroit pawn shop that served as the centerpiece of the reality television series Hardcore Pawn. On the show, Seth often played the foil to his outspoken father. Their disagreements, whether over customer negotiations, decisions about pricing, or differences in how to handle employees.
I can't believe that you did this.
What don't you understand? You're bleeding our brand. Isn't that what it's all about? American Jewelry? If you keep this place, we're gonna lose money. It doesn't take a genius to understand that your empire that you built in Detroit is going to over here. Cut your losses before it takes you down.
I can't even look at you right now.
Added a layer of drama that kept viewers tuning in. Seth's more analytical, measured style frequently clashed with Les's bold and confrontational approach, creating tension that was both authentic and entertaining. These conflicts became part of the formula that made the program compelling and kept it running for several seasons. When Hardcore Pawn eventually ended, many wondered what direction Seth's life would take. Would he step away from the family business, or continue to work under the shadow of his father's larger-than-life persona? Evidence suggests that Seth chose continuity. He has remained at American Jewelry and Loan, continuing to help oversee the operations of the store. What changed, however, was the level of public attention. Without cameras capturing every disagreement, his role has become quieter, more private, and less tied to entertainment. Seth maintains an active presence on social media, where he posts about the store's inventory, customer stories, and occasional personal or family moments. While these posts lack the orchestrated drama of the show, they highlight the ongoing reality of running a pawn business in a changing economic environment. Reports and interviews indicate that some of the underlying business tensions between Seth and Les have not disappeared. Disagreements about modernization, risk-taking, and adapting to shifts in customer behavior continue to surface. Les has traditionally favored bold decisions and high visibility, while Seth often takes a more cautious, strategic view. These debates are common in family businesses, but when involving two strong personalities, they can be particularly intense. Over time, Seth appears to have taken on more responsibilities within the shop. Age and experience have made him a stronger voice in decision-making. Moreover, the economic downturn has placed new challenges on the pawn industry. Seth has acknowledged these pressures, pointing to the struggles of customers who are increasingly unable to redeem pawned items, or who rely on pawn transactions to meet urgent financial needs. His awareness of these realities reflects a pragmatic understanding of both the business and its human dimensions. On a personal level, Seth has kept a relatively low profile since the end of the show. He has avoided scandals, legal issues, and major health crises. Public disagreements with Les have kept his name in circulation, but outside of those moments, Seth has projected stability. Observers note that he sometimes expresses frustration about the constraints of working within both a family business and a legacy enterprise, yet such frustration is normal under those circumstances. In sum, Seth Gold remains a key part of American Jewelry and Loan. He continues to work, continues to carry responsibility, and continues to represent the quieter, but enduring side of the story that began on Hardcore Pawn. Life for him now is less about television drama and more about sustaining a family business in difficult times. His role is steady, demanding, and essential even without the spotlight. Ashley Gold Broad Independence Business and Life After the Show. Ashley Gold Broad's, often credited on the show as Ashley Gold, was head of the jewelry department during Hardcore Pawn. She was Les Gold's daughter. After the show ended, she made a decision to leave the pawn shop to start her own online jewelry business. That step toward independence is considered by many as both risky and bold, no longer protected by the family brand, no longer riding on TV visibility, but owning her own platform and direction. Her business is jewelry-centered. She designs, sources, and sells jewelry online. I found no recent credible reports saying she has encountered legal issues like the kind some other cast members have.
Morning, we begin with Ashley Gold, the founder and owner of Pawn Chick Shopping. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's always great to see you.
I love being here.
Especially when you bring in all this bling. It's beautiful.
Celebrity jewelry designer Ashley Gold joining us live now to give us a look at some ways to update our jewelry collection. Good morning, Ashley.
But running an independent business, especially in a niche field like jewelry, in modern times is challenging. She must manage supply chains, compete with large retailers, deal with customer service, and maintain credibility in an online market flooded with options. Ashley has also dealt with public scrutiny from the show. Hardcore Pawn often focused on family conflict, which sometimes meant viewers saw her in moments of disagreement with Les or Seth. Removing herself from the shop allowed her to not only escape daily on-camera disputes, but also to control more of her own narrative. She is reportedly more active on social media, more in charge of her brand identity, and less dependent on the family name, though that still carries weight. Another dimension is reputation. Some viewers and former employees have criticized how the show depicted relationships or how difficult the working environment could be. Ashley has not been publicly tied to those disputes in legal terms, but the emotional weight and social media fallout have followed her. Managing brand and image is always part of her work now. Her personal life is much more private compared to show era. There are occasional public appearances, family gatherings, some interviews, but nothing scandalous recently that is credible. The shift seems intentional: business, privacy, independence. Other cast members' departures, controversies, and where they are now. The Hardcore Pawn cast includes several other figures beyond the Gold family. Employees, security management, many of whose lives changed post-show. Bobby Janiak, Bobby J, is one of them. He worked at the shop, appeared on the show, and afterward has spoken in social media posts about feeling taken advantage of by the shop ownership. He has expressed frustrations about pay, credit for on-camera work, and how his contributions were depicted. He does not appear to have major legal charges or scandals recently, but the tensions show how reality, TV jobs often leave people feeling like narrative is outside of their control. Joe, Big Joe, the former head of security, is another. On the show, he was caught stealing scrap gold and was arrested, then fired. That incident was actually shown during the season 6 finale. After that, his employment ended. What became of him afterward is less well-documented. Little public info on his current employment or life beyond his departure from the pawn shop. Rich Pyle, store manager, also left after disputes. He reportedly was sent home during an episode for a relatively minor dispute. Though he apologized, he eventually left the pawn shop entirely. The split seemed partly professional disagreements over how Les managed things, how employees were treated, fairness. Rich has posted on social media off and on but has not, as far as credible sources show, become a prominent public figure since. Other former employees like window clerks Christina, Nikki, Amber, or security staff appear to have faded somewhat from the public eye. Some were shown being arrested in specific episodes for theft, minor wrongdoing, but many otherwise have built quieter lives. Some might hold other jobs, or simply left the pawn shop world, but credible updates are sparse. The show's cancellation reduced the forced visibility. Without new seasons, many cast members' later lives are not chronicled well. So while Les, Seth, and Ashley remain somewhat visible business, social media, interviews, others have resolved into lower-profile lives, some with resentment or regret about their treatment. The show left behind both opportunities and drawbacks for many cast members. The economic turn, how the market pressures revealed human cost. One real development is that hardcore pawn is now seen not only as entertainment, but also as snapshot of economic hardship. Les himself has said that lately many customers are pawning to survive, not just redeeming. For many, pawning is a necessity: gas, food, rent. That shows how deeply economic pressures are weighing on ordinary people. The cast shop became a kind of community thermometer. When hard times hit, people come in to pawn what they own. That also places extra weight on the cast. On camera, they could treat dramatic customers or unusual items as spectacle. Off camera, Les, Seth, Ashley, and employees see people's desperation, people pawning heirlooms, pawning sentimental items, sometimes at unfavorable terms. They see children, elders, people who are one emergency away from collapse. That human cost is not always visible in TV, but Les has started talking about it openly, which shows change. He has said the pawn line is longer, the weekly pawners are increasing, and the populations using pawn shops are more fragile. For employees, that means more difficult customer interactions, more compassion required, more pressure. There is also pressure for the business to stay afloat in changing retail climates, online competition, changing pawn shop regulations, property costs in Detroit, inflation, supply chain issues for buying and selling precious metals or jewelry. All that makes their business tougher now than during the heyday of mid-2010s when TV ratings helped with publicity. So the cast members are in a moment of adjustment, Liz having more public commentary about economic hardship, Seth needing to manage business adaptation, Ashley as independent, business owner seeing both opportunity and difficulty, employees grappling with their past portrayal on TV vs present reality. The economic pressures revealed things the show sometimes masked: reputation, public image, and what was shown vs reality. A core issue for many cast members is that reality TV both highlights and distorts. On Hardcore Pawn, many scenes were tense, clients were dramatic, conflicts inside the store, thefts, arguments with employees. Those moments made good television, but from interviews, social media posts, and retrospective commentary, it is clear that not everything shown was perfectly representative of daily life. Some staff have claimed parts were staged or coached. Others say that the camera presence itself altered behavior. For example, employees have said that some conflicts were emphasized in editing or placed for greater drama. Some cast members have complained about payment or credit relative to how they were depicted, suggesting that while TV brought exposure, it also brought narrative constraints and sometimes misrepresentation. For Ashley, part of stepping away from the show into her own business may have been motivated by wanting more control over how she is seen. For Seth, continuing to post highlights of business and family suggests a desire to shift narrative from drama to authenticity. Les, as the business owner, has occasionally pushed back on claims of over-dramatization, but seems to accept that part of the reality is that pawn shops see people in distress, and that distress itself is part of the reality, even if some segments are amplified. Public image matters. Being shown in conflict on television means every mistake or harsh moment is remembered by fans. That can weigh heavily. Some former employees reportedly felt they were portrayed as villains. Some clients felt misrepresented. There have been lawsuits or threats, though not necessarily major successful ones, about how people were shown. The cast now seem more careful about what they allow to be filmed, what interviews they give, and how to frame their current lives. So reputation is a kind of living thing. It changes with time, with what people choose to share, with what news outlets dig up. If Hardcore Pawn had its peak drama in visuals and conflict, many cast members now want more balanced visibility, highlighting business challenges, personal growth, and less sensationalism. The fall of Big Joe and the stain of betrayal. One of the most tragic arcs from Hardcore Pawn was the downfall of Big Joe, the shop's security chief. He was a towering presence on the show, someone fans recognized instantly: large, intimidating. the man who often stepped in when customers became aggressive. Security was critical at American Jewelry and Loan. Fights broke out, tempers exploded, thefts happened in real time. Joe was supposed to be the man who protected the Gold family's livelihood. But in 2012, everything changed. During the Season 6 finale, cameras caught Joe stealing scrap gold from the store. It was a shocking revelation because this was not a hostile customer or a petty thief. This was a trusted insider, a man responsible for protecting assets, betraying the very business he was hired to secure. The betrayal struck the Golds personally. Les had trusted him, the family had relied on him, and now that trust was broken. The footage showed police involvement. Joe was arrested on site, handcuffed, and escorted out. The incident ended his career at American Jewelry and Loan, and it marked him forever in the eyes of viewers. For Joe, this was a tragic ending. He went from a recognizable television figure to a disgraced employee. After the arrest, his life drifted out of the public eye. Unlike Les, Seth, or Ashley, he had no family name or larger business to fall back on. He was remembered only for his betrayal. Fans speculate about what happened after the show. Did he find work? Did he rebuild? Did he leave Detroit? But credible updates are scarce. In many ways, that is the tragedy. His public image is frozen in that moment of downfall. The lesson is sharp: fame and trust can be destroyed in a single decision. Joe's arrest was more than a storyline. It was a real act that left scars on his reputation and probably strained his personal life. For fans, watching him walk out in handcuffs was one of the darkest moments in hardcore pawn history. For Joe himself, it was a tragic ending to what could have been a lasting legacy as a respected security professional on one of TV's most memorable reality shows. Fame fades, struggles remain. Another tragic ending for the hardcore pawn cast is not about one person, but about the show as a whole and how fame collapsed. From 2010 to 2015, the show was a cultural phenomenon. Millions tuned in each week to watch explosive confrontations, bizarre pawn items, and family fights between Les, Seth, and Ashley. The show had spin-off potential, reruns, and endless memes. For a time, the cast were celebrities in Detroit and beyond. But when TruTV canceled the series after 9 seasons, everything stopped suddenly. Reality TV is a fickle form of fame. Cast members who had cameras following them daily, who were used to social media buzz and autograph requests, suddenly had none of that. They went back to being ordinary workers in a pawn shop on 8 Mile or worse, unemployed former reality stars. For Les, Seth, and Ashley, the pawn shop remained. But for many minor cast members, clerks, assistants, even customers who became infamous on the show, there was no lasting benefit. Fame did not translate into wealth. There were no royalties flowing for reruns. Once the cameras left, the excitement dried up. Even for the Gold family, the end of the show meant confronting reality without the buffer of a TV network. Yes, they still had the shop, but the shop itself faced tough times. Detroit's economic struggles deepened, with inflation and job losses driving more desperate customers to pawn. Liz has admitted that many people pawn items now and cannot redeem them because they are pawning for survival, not for convenience. The Golds, once larger-than-life TV stars, became again what they were before: pawnbrokers serving a struggling community. This collapse of fame is tragic in its own way. Not because anyone died, but because fame promised stability, recognition, excitement. And when it ended, the reality was harsh. Joe was disgraced. Other employees left bitter. Ashley had to start her own small business with none of the spotlight. Seth was left with family tensions and the heavy burden of continuing the pawn shop legacy. Les, older now, has spoken more about economic despair than about celebrity. The tragic ending here is that reality TV gives a fleeting high, but it rarely sustains lives after cancellation. The cast of Hardcore Pawn are a living example of that truth. The fame ended, the struggles remain. And for many viewers who once saw them as stars, the story feels unfinished. But for the cast, it is simply life after television, and life is not scripted. Ashley's life beyond business, while Ashley Broad is focused on her jewelry brand. She has also leaned into family life and personal fulfillment. Away from the daily conflict of American Jewelry and Loan, she has spoken in small interviews about enjoying more time with her children and husband, embracing privacy that reality TV never allowed. Her independence is not just financial, it is emotional. By stepping away from the family's constant spotlight, she has built a life that reflects balance: work she controls, a home life she protects, and a reputation that, while once tied to TV drama, now rests on her own decisions. Fans who once knew her as the fiery voice on Hardcore Pawn now see her as a businesswoman, mother, and individual carving a path outside of her father's shadow. Seth's push toward modernization, one of the biggest shifts since the show ended, has been Seth's ongoing effort to modernize the pawn industry. He has quietly worked to bring more digital tools into American Jewelry and Loan, updating inventory systems, experimenting with online marketing, and even testing e-commerce for certain items. This is a contrast to his father's traditional approach, which still leans on in-store bargaining and face-to-face negotiations. Seth recognizes that younger customers expect digital convenience, and he has been vocal in interviews about how pawnbroking must evolve to survive in the 21st century. That push toward modernization has caused friction with Luz, but it also shows that Seth is not simply maintaining the family business. He is trying to adapt it for a new era. The story of Hardcore Pawn after its cancellation is one of contrasts. Fame fading, businesses grinding forward, and individuals redefining themselves outside the spotlight. Seth Gold has leaned into his role not as a reality TV star, but as a voice of hard truths about America's economy. He reminds people that pawn shops are early warning systems, where desperation shows up before Wall Street notices. Seth Gold has shifted from fiery on-camera clashes with his father to quieter, pragmatic leadership, pushing the family business toward modernization while managing generational tension. Ashley Broad has stepped away entirely, building her jewelry brand and prioritizing privacy, family, and independence over televised drama. Other cast members faced less graceful exits. Big Joe's downfall remains the darkest memory, his betrayal frozen in viewers' minds. Rich Pyle and Bobby J voiced frustrations about how they were portrayed, reminders of how reality TV can distort and leave scars. For them, the end of the show meant the end of public identity, with little to fall back on. Ultimately, Hardcore Pawn's legacy lies in its duality. On screen, it was spectacle, fights, chaos, betrayal. Off-screen, it became a mirror of economic struggle, showing how survival, not drama, is the daily story. Fame was fleeting, but the human lessons remain. The Hardcore Pawn cast's reality after the show is mixed. For some, it has meant public commentary, business evolution, new ventures. For others, disappointment, reduced visibility, or regrets about how they were portrayed. Seth Gold remains critical to the business and has become a voice on economic hardship. Seth is still deeply involved, balancing business and family expectations in a less dramatic, but more sustainable mode. Ashley Broad has charted a path toward independence and control of her own brand. Other former cast members have moved out of spotlight, some resentful, some silent. The economic realities, reputational consequences, and emotional costs ripple out beyond the cameras. If there is a lesson here, it is that reality TV gives viewers spectacle, conflict, shock. But behind that are real people whose lives continue long after the show ends. And those lives are not scripted, not edited, and often complicated.